Oh my God, this is our song. Listen to radio.
Yeah, like, I honestly feel like sit around waiting for it to come on. And here it is.
Jessica has no idea what she just joined into. Not Jessica, Julie. On the Zoom.
I was like, nice singing, Madison. Keep going.
I feel like we're all in a mood today. In a good mood.
All in a mood.
No, like a good mood.
I was gonna say, I think.
I was
Yeah, that was,
dancing in Starbucks. Oh yeah.
So
We're
we're
dancing
dancing
to
in
Ashante. Hey, we miss you, Julie. We wish, well, one day we'll see you soon.
I know. One day you will see me soon. I know I miss
One
you
day.
guys too. But it's nice to see you every other day.
No, it's always good. Her boots.
Hopefully I didn't miss too much this morning. I had the pass off and my daughter has chicken pox now. So that's awesome.
Listen, now we're in the same, you get chicken.
Well, she has an awesome father, so I don't know where she's been.
It's just with all the hand sanitizing.
I know. Well, no, she had the vaccine, but apparently you can still get it even if you have the vaccine, but she only had it once. So remember when I told you, Jess, I thought she had hives? Not so much. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, give her an oatmeal bath.
It's not fun. I can tell you that.
I remember taking the oatmeal bath when I was a kid. Yes. I brought my.
I remember when my twins had it, so that was really fun.
I brought my
It is a-
computer because it's on it.
And I brought hard copies.
Oh, good, so I don't need.
All right.
I just wasn't sure. We're ready.
You're ready. Awesome. Thank you.
We are so ready.
So I'm going to apologize in advance. There's a couple burning fires going on in closing and some other things. So it's possible somebody may poke their head in and
No problem.
ask me to help them. So I'm trying to avoid it, but. So
No worries.
who was on deck? Let's see. I think Mariah was up. Share with us how you would present the exclusive right to buy agreement.
Situated. Hey, Eric, how are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
I'm good. So we went over the Massachusetts mandatory real estate agent licensee agency
Consumer.
consumer disclosure
We've
form.
been practicing this.
We always thought every other way.
Actually, never tried it.
It trips me up, I'm sorry. So, you know the type of agency or the type of relationship that we can have for the transaction. For me, I prefer the exclusive right to buy. And I know you want to go look at that property, so we just have to kind of go through this.
Okay.
And, you know,
So what is this exactly?
this is the exclusive right to buy agreement.
Which is what?
This is a contract between
Okay.
you. And you're going to put your name there and your preferred location of what you're looking for, general description, how many bedrooms, how many baths.
Okay.
And then your price range, high to low. And then this paragraph here just kind of goes into stating that if you were to look in New Hampshire, we're a brokerage that can do both.
Okay. Are you licensed in New Hampshire?
Not currently.
So how would that work?
So I would, since we are non-disclosed, we
What
can,
designated?
non-designated, sorry. Non-designated, that means that I can have someone that is licensed in New Hampshire help you look at those properties
Okay.
and go from there.
But I don't want to work with anybody else but you.
Aw.
Thank you. You would still be my client. I would just, for legal purposes, have them show you the houses and things like that, and have them work with us on that basis. So paragraph 1 is the services. So it's just gonna kind of reiterate all the different things that we went over in the last one. So fiduciary and all that good stuff.
Okay.
And then there's duration of agency, so this is a 6-month contract.
Okay.
It's our company standard. It's not saying that it's going to take 6 months to find a house, and go through all of this, but it just gives us enough time to, work with, in case anything arises or you don't like any of the properties that are up for listing right now.
Time out. So rule number 1 in sales, don't create an objection for yourself.
Okay,
So just say it's 6 months and move right along to the next one.
okay,
And if they start pushing back, that's when you say, well, it is company policy. And that's really, it's not going to take that long. But just say it very matter-of-factly and kind of move on. And more often than not, people be, okay, fine.
okay.
Right.
Sounds good.
So,
Mhm.
so the same thing with the 3% too,
Everything,
right?
right? Just in general, right? The more that you, the more that you come across as being confident, the more that you come across as being definitive, the better off you're going to be in terms of the sales and less likely to get pushed back. Now, that's not to say you won't get pushed back. You will. That's when you need to be able to,
Gotcha.
be able to say this backwards, if you will, because so that you can communicate with them that you have more than a working knowledge of this. I have an intimate knowledge of this and how it's working and so on and so forth. And let me explain the details to you. I'm just giving you the overview. My contract's 6 months long. Any questions? Next.
Next?
Yep.
Okay. We have buyer's obligations. So I have obligations to you. We request that you have obligations to us.
Okay.
And what that is you're just gonna notify if any real estate agents, if anyone in real estate reaches out to you, you notify them that you are working with me exclusively.
Okay.
And then that you provide any accurate information as far as financial standpoint goes and things like that.
Is that why you want me pre-approved?
Yes.
Okay.
And then just for you to become familiar, say if you do find a property that you want to move forward in,
Yep.
it is your due diligence to, make sure that you are aware of the neighborhood component, anything that might be going on
By
with the house.
neighborhood component. I'm not following you. Remember, I've
composition.
done this before.
Neighborhood composition, so the type of,
You're digging a hole. Digging
um,
yourself a big hole that you're gonna have to dig out or climb out.
all right, I'm climbing, where's the ladder? So anything physical that goes on with the house, it's your job to investigate further, just because I'm not licensed to do so.
Mhm.
And we want to make sure that you,
How about this? How about any information that you think is relevant or pertinent to helping you make an informed decision? It's really, you have a responsibility to yourself
okay,
to go ferret that out. I'm happy to help you, but more often than not in these types of things, and if it's, you want to know crime rates, for example, I'm going to direct you to the police department, or I'll direct you to the resource. I'm probably not going to be the one that answers the question,
Mhm.
but I'm going to help you get to the person that answers the question. But you have this awesome responsibility to yourself that when you buy a house, you've done some due diligence on it, so you know what you're buying.
Okay.
Make sense?
Makes sense.
Oh, awesome. Good job.
So yes. Where should I start?
Keep going.
Um,
There's a broker responsibilities, next paragraph.
Yes.
Broker.
So the broker's responsibility, so that's going to be, I also owe you the fiduciary, but when you hire me, you get years of market knowledge and things like that, and everything that we can provide for you. It's me helping you through this process seamlessly and effortlessly to get you
Like that.
to buy the house that you want. And also if you wanted to look into zoning and anything like that, I can once again direct you to the person that can help you out with that. So any additional matters that you're seeking out, we can find people for that, and so you don't have to go on your own and look for that. So we have the effective of exclusive right to buy agreement. So it just is reiterating that we are a partnership. So if you go and see a house, I can't see all the houses in the area. It's just not possible. So if you end up seeing a house that you like, just let me know, and we can more than happy to help. Bring you through that, walk through that for you. Payment. Just because I generally don't like to work for free. I don't know about you, but
Typically not.
okay, that's good. So with all of the additional things that we provide for you, our company standard is 3%. Now, normally the seller or the listing agent is gonna offer up a percentage. In a case that we go and look at a house and that full percentage is not offered, you would be obligated to pay that difference. So it would just offset it. For example, if they were offering 2%, at the end of the day, you'd be obligated to do that 1%. That's not to say that we can't.
I was told I don't have to pay. Buyers shouldn't have to pay a fee.
I know that, and that's why I'll do everything in my best to kind of negotiate and, in some way, either with closing costs, you know, rework that, so it's not exactly coming out of your pocket. But, you know, you aren't going to be getting all of the additional things that a normal brokerage wouldn't provide.
Like what?
Like,
You know, it's gonna
I
ask.
know,
You set
it's like I
yourself up
say
for
it
the
and then I'm
question.
like,
Our state-of-the-art marketing
yes,
team, our photos.
we have a moving truck that you
We are
can use.
marketing, thank you.
Of course.
Wait, what's marketing?
We
What
have
does
a-
marketing have to do with me buying a house?
Well, oh, mine.
Yeah.
I'm actually thinking of selling it, right, so maybe I can take that back, sorry. I got too
Thanks for
excited,
trying to.
yeah, fine, no.
We do have a moving truck that you are able to use as well.
You think she's getting in the weeds too much?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's one of the less you say.
Take two. Go ahead.
Okay,
Take two. Paragraph six. Paragraph 6.
all right, so my fee is 3%.
That sounds like a lot.
I know, and that's 9 times out of 10, the listing agent is going to offer all or majority of the percentage. So it's not going to have to come out of your pocket unless we do find a house that you are absolutely in love with and they're only offering 2%. That additional percentage is going to be offsetted from you in either one way or the other. Either we can negotiate with listing agent, seller's cost, closing costs, things like that.
All right, but my family did a lot of investing in real estate, and they said that they never pay a buyer's fee. There's the confidence I'm looking for.
You've got the
Killing
best
me.
negotiating
You
skills
were
out
down.
there.
Help her out.
You've got the best negotiating skills. You know,
I'm gonna use all of my negotiating skills and my,
Well, I would hope that you would. But
Yes.
Doesn't your fiduciary responsibility cover that?
it does,
Okay.
but, I'm going to try and see, I don't know, killing me today.
I'm not killing you, you're killing yourself. It's not like you didn't know this was happening. Go to the next.
All right. Broker's role, disclosure, so.
Flustered.
Yes. So basically, this is just saying that I actually forgot this.
when we say we're representing,
Oh, yeah, so if we're representing you, if people ask, we are representing you, similar to the paragraph before with your buyer's obligations. It is our broker's obligation to disclose that we are working with you as well.
Okay.
The next one is we are not licensed or able to hire or perform different like zoning and property inspecting and things like that. Like I said, we can offer and find someone to help you with that, but it is not a broker's responsibility or we're not licensed to do so. Agency information, it's just restating that we are a non-designated agency. And then consent to dual agency. So you are familiar with dual agency from the previous one,
I
correct?
think I remember seeing something about
Okay. So this is just saying that if dual agency was to occur, you're going to be notified. We're going to sit down, go over another disclosure, and so you're not going to be like in the dark and things like that. We're going to be very transparent with that.
But that's not what that paragraph, that's not all that that paragraph says. What's the name of the paragraph?
Consent to dual agency.
Okay, so I didn't hear you explain what I was consenting to. Why would they name the paragraph consent? Because I'm doing what by signing this? I am giving.
You're giving away part of the,
I'm giving my consent
you're giving your consent
to what?
to allow us to work in dual agency if it arises. And if that time does come up, you will be notified, and we have declaration of agency. So you can't go and work with another agent. And that way you don't have to end up paying 2 fees and things like that. Other buyers, I'm sorry, I lost my sheet of my notes on it. So I may be representing another buyer that could go and look at the same house that you're looking for. In that circumstance, I would have someone in our office handle, writing the offer, just so that there's just no crosshairs there, and that you're getting the best service and being well taken care of as well. Then there's equal.
So I wouldn't be passed off to somebody else.
No, you would not. So equal opportunity. This is just saying that here we practice by the law, and we're not going to discriminate against any of the protected classes in Massachusetts and federally. And then the entire agreement and modifications thereof. If you want to take a look at this and there's anything that you would like to modify, it's just basically stating that we're allowed to modify it. We just have to initial it and put in those changes.
Actually, can I see it?
Sure.
And there it is.
Yep.
So,
It says free. Sorry, I crossed it out. Because she said I could modify it.
I figured that was it.
so that's not really going to work for me,
Mhm.
but
So I'm not gonna pick on you, but
you can pick on me, it's fine.
you gotta know this stuff's stone cold, right?
Yeah.
I get that we're putting you on the spot.
Mhm.
I'm doing it for a reason, because I'd rather have you
Did it so much better
do
yesterday.
this in front of us than do this in front of a client.
Yeah,
Okay, you really have to know this stuff forwards and backwards to be able to explain what it is, whether it's this or the listing agreement, right, which are probably the 2 most important things. I certainly have no expectation that you're gonna sit down and say, Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller, or Miss Buyer, Miss Seller, here's a purchase and sale. Let me go through the 32 paragraphs in the purchase and sale with you. I have no expectation that you're gonna do that.
yeah,
I do have every expectation that you're gonna go through this in a succinct manner and explain what this is and do it in a way, we're gonna teach you to do it in a way of doing it that you're not digging yourself a hole.
okay,
All right? Feel free to modify this. You just,
I know. I did so much better yesterday.
and I'm sure you did, but you've got to, in
No.
my humble opinion, you're probably gonna need to practice this a whole bunch more before you do your first one,
Okay,
would be my guess,
all right,
okay?
sorry.
Don't be, again, I'm not here to pick on people, I'm here to help get you to learn, and I wanna make sure that if there's not an understanding of it, or if you're uncomfortable with it, then let's figure out what you don't understand or what you're uncomfortable with, and let's figure out how to help you. Maybe it's me, I'm not teaching it right, I don't know.
No, you're doing fine. I just have to read it over some more.
No problem.
Mariah, you know what helps me if it helps me, like when I went through it, if you put like a couple bullet points next to like each paragraph and you have your like own copy in front of you, because when you're handing them a copy, you can still have your copy and they're not looking, like they're looking at their copy and you're going through it. So you can be like, oh, I touched on that. And then like Eric said, I think less is more sometimes, but like very, like you say it and then you move on. And then if they like hesitate and they're like, wait, what? And then you can be like, oh, okay, do you have a question? And then kind of go there. I don't know. That's just my.
No, I did something like that, and then I left it in my car, so.
So I did that my first, so don't think that I did this flawlessly my first few times. Again,
Yeah,
I didn't have the benefit of these types of round tables and this is what you need to do. I kind of stumbled into it. But the one skill I learned as a result of that that's actually been very helpful for me, and it's gonna sound really weird and funny and stupid, I can read upside down pretty well now. Because what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to go into a meeting with my notes
yeah,
so that I was reading my notes. So I can literally say, okay, here's the exclusive right to buy agreement. Let's talk about this. And I can actually read while I'm pointing at this because I've done this so many times now and I practice that. I'm not saying that's what you have to do, but that's how I did it because I'm not one. If my notes are in front of me, I will read them verbatim.
Yeah.
And they'll know I'm reading them verbatim because I'm not looking at their eyes, I'm looking at my paper and then looking up. So you've got to be able to get familiar with it. At least if I'm looking at this and if you're able to read upside down and somewhat backwards, because you're reading from right to left versus left to right, you're reading upside down, it's an acquired skill. You know, even if you can key off some of the words.
Yeah, I mean, the bullet points thing
Yeah.
definitely was helping me just
Okay.
getting through it and.
Whatever works for you, right? That's fine.
I do have to say that getting picked on in that certain sense, especially on the 3%, definitely helps, especially even witnessing it, because I was practicing it with my parents and I was stumbling on my words because they said the same exact thing, like, why would we do that, this and that, and sometimes you just don't know what to say, so it's nice to practice.
There's why we make the suggestion that do what you guys did yesterday afternoon. That I was thrilled to see that.
Yeah.
Where you're actually sitting in here and you're kind of role playing against each other, and you know it's when we're in this environment, right? It's hard for me to press one of you much harder than I'm pressing the other one. I'm trying to be fair and equal and all of that. But within those little practice sessions, be brutal on each other. Because I'd rather have you be brutal on each other and then get up and go have a drink or a cup of coffee together than go into a meeting with a client. It's a brutal meeting with a client. They just walk out unhappy and you don't have a signed agreement because you weren't ready for it. You're going to get engineers. You're going to get people that know this stuff better than you do. Rare, but you're going to get them. You've got to know what this is.
Yeah.
Stone cold. You just have to. So I'd rather you guys take the time now to do it. I'd rather have these types of interactions. Again, I'm not doing it to purposely embarrass you or do
You're not
anything.
embarrassing me, you're fine.
I want to make sure that this is a learning environment. You understand the need for it because the need will drive the reason for doing it.
I also had one more point. When I was doing it with my family, they said that, like, as it says, exclusive right to buy agreement, like, people do know that agreements are contracts. So when I stated, like, this is a contract, his point to it was, like, why did you stress the fact that it was a contract? Because maybe someone would sign it if you didn't stress it so hard.
I'd much rather stress it as a
That's what I
contract, right?
said.
For me, it's a transparency issue, right? Especially because if you're good at rapport, right? Remember, one of the things you have to have in sales is rapport, the ability to talk with somebody and carry on a conversation and get that mutual feeling of empathy for each other. If you do a good enough job explaining this, they're probably going to sign it without reading it, even though you're going to insist on that they read it. And so again, I go back to the issue of from the lens of if you're sitting up in front on the witness stand and the judge is asking you questions, you better have explained that this agreement was a contract.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why rewind back to the first class, right? What's the difference between a contract and a disclosure? Those are really the two things that you as consumers are going to be signing. Disclosure is a passing of information from one party to the other, and the signing is merely an acknowledgement that the information's either been passed, received, or it's been given. The signing of a contract is a legal binding activity. They need to know that before they sign it.
Yeah.
So I have no problem with somebody stressing the contract, and I'll deal with that. It's not an objection. Do most people know an agreement's a contract? Probably, but there's certainly, you're going to run into more than your fair share of first-time home buyers that have no idea what anything is.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. It was kind of just what, like, I said, that one, it would be like bad if they didn't know that an agreement was a contract, and then they looked at you and been like, why didn't you explain that to me? Because that would have been like completely worse to be in that scenario. So I kind of said the same thing, but I just wanted to bring that up.
No problem. Good point. Any other questions or points or thoughts? Practice. You'll be fine. You'll be just fine.
Polish up a bit.
So
That's fine.
paragraph 5 is just basically saying that the buyer agrees to conduct the negotiations of the property through me. It's just reiterating that.
The exclusivity paragraph?
Yeah, effective of exclusive right to buy agreement is saying that you're gonna work with me.
Right, don't go
The best
work,
way to-
don't go work with another agent.
Okay.
Because if you do, you're gonna end up paying me and the other agent. I don't think that's what you're looking for, and it's not what I'm looking for. I wanna get paid having worked for you and done the job. But if you wanna work with somebody, if you work with another agent, I'm happy to take your money. Right? Again, it's a matter of personal style, where you can, if you can inject a little bit of humor or a little bit off color, that's fine. I think it's helpful because it takes away from the seriousness of it that it's a legal binding contract. Okay, did you guys have a chance to read the offer to purchase real estate?
Yes.
You did. You have to recite it verbatim right now. Just good. Julie, did you have a chance to read it as well?
I skimmed it. Yes, I could not do this verbatim.
So what I want to do is we'll come back to the rest of you. Don't think you're off the hook for the exclusive. You're still on, but I want to kind of mix it up a little bit because hitting that again and again and again and again is not the most exciting way to learn it. So an offer to purchase real estate. So the question I have for you, is it a contract or is it not a contract?
It's one contract.
Here's a
I'm
copy
gonna
of
go
it.
with
Julie, I just emailed you a different copy of it. It's got
Okay.
some additional explanations in it. For your records, I can email it all to you guys if you want. But so the question on the table right now is an offer to purchase real estate a contract or not a contract?
I would say contract.
So we have one for contract.
I think it's a-
Yes, no. Julie, contract, yes or no?
No.
No,
No.
it's not a contract.
I would say
Madison, yes or no?
it says agreement in it, so I'm gonna say it's a contract.
Okay. Mariah, yes or no?
Mm, yes.
Yes, okay. Jonathan? Yes. Luch?
Yeah.
Okay. So Madison, who was it that said no?
I'll take full responsibility.
Okay, you take full responsibility for it. What makes you think it's not a contract?
I feel like there's a way to get out of it. So even if if the seller accepted your offer, you don't have to, you're not binded to it.
Okay, so if a seller accepts an offer, what is, define acceptance for me?
That's not a contract.
So if they accept it, they're signing saying, yes, we acknowledge that this offer is, that this is the one that we want to go with, I guess.
Okay, so define acceptance, go ahead,
Well, actually,
help her out.
quick question though.
Yeah.
Isn't there like an executed contract and an
Executory?
yes, thank you. This is what I would think, because it's like executing a but it's not like executed yet.
So we're gonna go kill contracts, executing them?
No, but, I meant like a work, like,
When a contract ends, it's
Yeah.
executed.
right.
Do I
And
need to-
this is like in the progress, I don't know, but anyways, acceptance, sorry.
Those are good words to be throwing at you, so it's fine.
Okay.
So acceptance, let's go to the broader one and then we'll go to executory after that. So what would define an accepted offer to purchase? How do you know you have,
Signatures, like the party that's selling has to accept,
so both parties' signatures on the same document, is that what you meant?
I think so, yeah.
Good. And on that same document, there are these things called terms and conditions. Sometimes referred to as T and C. What would be a term or a condition on that document?
Inspections.
Action is a term and condition if it's there, right?
Mhm.
What else?
Financing,
Financing, what else?
would purchase and sale agreement be one or no?
Sure, purchase and sale signing one.
Closing,
Closing is one.
deposit,
Deposits, several.
additional terms and conditions.
And then there's additional terms and conditions.
I think we're forgetting one.
If you're getting several.
Okay. Is
What does
it,
paragraph 2 say?
acceptance.
Is that a term and condition?
Would contingencies be on there or no?
Well, let me ask you a question. What's the difference between a term and condition and contingency?
I guess, maybe nothing.
They're somewhat ubiquitous, right? They're
Okay.
somewhat synonymous.
Okay.
We can get into it that a term, it may, a contingency implies that there's an if what, then what. Right, so if something happens, then something else will happen. Or if something doesn't happen, something won't happen or will happen. It's a conditioned statement.
Offer deadline.
Deadline, like that. That's your acceptance, right? Deadline. Okay. So the offer itself, do you want to go back, Julie, and tell me, is it a contract or is it not a contract?
I'm gonna go with a contract
Awesome. Why?
because it is binding based on the terms and conditions. So what I originally thought with the terms and conditions were not making it a contract, it actually is making it a contract.
Okay. All right. So when somebody says we have an executory contract, what does that mean?
It's in progress. I don't know. Contingent.
No,
Signed.
execute.
By both parties?
No, exit.
Luch, what'd you say?
That it's signed by both parties.
Signed by both parties.
Right.
Or signed by out, let's say it's by all, because in theory there could be multiple buyers or multiple sellers, but it's signed by both parties being a generic word for a seller or sellers and buyer or buyers.
Well, most of us will run with that, right?
Mhm.
Way to go.
You might also hear it called an executed contract, meaning that it has been signed by both parties. You may be in the process of executing the contract, which means you're getting the process of getting signatures. Okay. So it is absolutely 100% a contract. So what does that mean? When you're writing the offer, you better be able to do what we're asking you to do on the exclusive right to buy agreement. You better be able to go through this document succinctly in a bullet point format to explain to a buyer, because that's you're generally using this form when you're writing an offer, you're generally writing it for a buyer. If you're a listing agent, you're generally receiving offers, okay? This, like all of our forms, is not a standard issue Massachusetts Association of Realtors offer to purchase contract or agreement. Okay, so the thing I will always caution you, one, read every contract that's submitted to you to present to your clients. Read it in full before you present it to your clients so that you know that there isn't something missing, there aren't some inaccuracies, or there isn't something there that will bite you in the you-know-what later on. Okay, let me give you an example of one of those things. So, in nearly every single offer to purchase contract or agreement that's used in the state of Massachusetts, it might not be paragraph 4 like it is in our agreement, but there's this reference to signing a mutually agreed upon purchase and sale agreement, which is what? A more detailed version of the offer, right? It's just a more detailed contract. There is one board of realtors out there, the North Shore Association of Realtors, write this down, the North Shore Association of Realtors, not unlike some other boards, have their own forms. Their offer to purchase contract is eerily similar in look and feel and in almost everything as the Massachusetts Association of Realtors offer to purchase contract, with one glaring omission. It does not include in its pre-written form, meaning fill in the blanks, it does not include in its pre-written form a contingency for signing a purchase and sale agreement. So what does that mean? That means if you get an offer on your listing on a North Shore Association of Realtors, and unless there's something handwritten in, you submit it to your seller loves it, they sign it, there is no purchase and sale. doesn't contemplate the signing of a purchase and sale. So my question to you is that legal?
Yeah.
Why?
Because they wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't.
That's not true.
You're saying that they'll never have to sign a purchase and sale?
That offer form, just like you have our offer form in front of you, does not have paragraph 4 in any way, shape, or form in the pre-written form. So if the offer is written without any additional terms and conditions that reference a purchase and sale, if your seller signs it, signs one that has been signed by the buyer, there is no purchase and sale agreement.
You're allowed to because they're both, like, it's not in here, and this is basically agreeing, this is their offer to purchase, and so if they agree it, then they agree that it's complete.
Right, because can't the buyer and seller agree on anything they want? Right? They don't have to sign a purchase and sale, they can, it's customary that they do. 9.9 times out of 10, there is one that's signed, but there's a contingency, sometimes a number of properties that there aren't. Similarly, let me ask you the question, if I decided as a real estate broker that it was in my client's best interest to go straight to purchase and sale and not sign an offer to purchase, can I do that?
Yeah, both parties agree.
Do you guys agree with, Mariah, you look a little lost.
No, I don't think you
Okay, why is that?
can, because you have to present something to them to accept or not. You can't just go straight into it, right?
So how is a purchase and sale different than an offer to purchase? Aren't both contracts?
Yeah.
Both have valuable consideration in terms of deposits in exchange for doing X, Y, and Z. The buyer gets to buy the property in exchange for other consideration. The seller will give them the property. What do you think? Madison, what do you think?
I think I might need to hear the question one more time.
You need some aspirin because I'm asking all these twisted questions.
I just need to hear it one more time.
So the question is if I think it's in my client's best interest, am I okay to present a purchase and sale without an offer? Can I just go right to purchase and sale without an offer in the state of Massachusetts?
Well, they're doing it in
If
North
they
Shore, right?
They're doing the opposite.
No,
Oh,
they have an offer, they're
sorry.
not, that doesn't contemplate.
Oh, that's right,
purchase and
I'm
sale.
sorry.
I would say yes, but I might be
Yes, what,
totally wrong that they're able to do that.
Jessica?
Yeah, I kind of want to say yes, because like, I think it doesn't happen often, but maybe if there's.
Jonathan?
Yes, that they can.
So the answer is yes, they can, and the reason is because they can, if they want to, right? The practice of having this bifurcated contract process in Massachusetts is a thing called the offer to purchase. And it could be the offer to purchase real estate, it could be the offer to purchase contract. There's a couple different names or flavors of it, but there's this first agreement, if you will, called an offer, and then there's this second agreement called the purchase and sale. It's just customary practice. It's just the way that real estate has been done for the last 100 years in the state. So that's been the practice.
Okay.
But it's a customary practice. It's not a law. There's no law that says that. The law says what? Go back to your statute of frauds, right? That's the law. The sale of real estate is required to be documented in writing and signed by both parties.
When that lady came in from New York, I'm sorry, I forget her name, but didn't she say New York, they do things differently?
They do.
Yeah.
Every state does
They-
things differently.
Yeah, I just remember her specifically saying that they don't.
Because in New Hampshire, 7 miles up the road, there is no such thing as an offer. Your offer is the purchase and
Okay,
sale.
yeah.
And it's the same purchase and sale for everybody.
No, Eric, do you think some of the clients, so if you were to do that and said, oh, I think we should just go to purchase and sale, you would probably explain why, because I feel like in Massachusetts, a lot of the people know, even if you're a first time buyer, like, oh, there's an offer, then there's a purchase of sale. Like, I just think a lot of people are familiar with that customary practice.
You're absolutely right. And so the one thing I want you to walk away with today, even if you don't understand the components of the offer, is that when you write an offer, you're telling a story, or your buyer is telling the seller a story. So, and it's part of the strategic, there's a strategic approach to it. And so you want to remember that as you're writing these offers, right? The dates tell a certain story, right? Of how urgent or not urgent it is to get certain things done. The purchase price, the terms and conditions tell a story about the buyer, right? The amount of the deposits tell a story about the buyer in theory, right? So if you start piecing this all together, the offer, in whatever format you want to put it in, is telling a very big story about the buyer. So why not make it, leverage it to your advantage?
Work document.
Right? Have I ever gone straight to purchase and sale? Yeah. Do I do it often? No. Why would I do it? We're in a multiple offer situation. I want to show how serious my buyer is. And I think the last time I did it, my buyer was able to waive the financing, was able to waive the home inspection, desired to. So there was no contingencies left. So why not go straight to a purchase and
So
sale?
how does that work? They submit the offer, and then you basically.
There was no offer. That was the offer.
They just purchased it, right?
We said there were multiple offers, so.
There were multiple offers, but instead of me submitting an offer to purchase, I submitted this a purchase
Oh,
and
you were on
sale.
the buy side.
We were on the buy side.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I see.
sorry. Right? Why did I do that? Because it takes this process, right? Most times, even if there is no contingency, typically, customarily, there's a home inspection in Massachusetts. It's sign an offer, do a home inspection, sign purchase and sale, apply for a loan commitment, any other terms and conditions, closing. Okay? What I was trying to do when I submitted my offer, which was really just a stripped down purchase and sale, I stepped over the, let me make an offer, we're not gonna do a home inspection, we're just going straight to purchase and sale. I just cut a week of time out for them, and I knew the time element for the seller was really important. They wanted to close as soon as possible.
Right.
So I took a week out that nobody else could take, because nobody else thought to submit a purchase and sale agreement.
So in competitive situations, it can sometimes work.
It can certainly work to your advantage.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay? And that's the way you have to think when you're writing an offer. So writing an offer isn't just saying, Mr. or Miss Buyer, what do you want to offer here? The offer is, hey, I've had a conversation with a listing agent, and here's all the actionable information I know. Their preferred closing date is X, right? We know that X, Y, and Z is important to them. We know that they have other offers on the property, or we're going to expect other offers, right? I showed a property up in Raymond, New Hampshire yesterday. There should have been a turnstile at the door. There were so many people there. Buyers, we sat after and said, "You like the house?" Sure do. What do you think? You know, are you going to write an offer? Well, I think maybe we'll write it. Okay, what do you think? Eric, what do you think? I said, I think it's going to go way over asking price. But you haven't done any comps. No, I haven't, but I don't need it, because my experience tells me when you got 5 parties waiting in line to go into a property on a Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock, that usually is an indication that it's the next hot property and that they're going to get multiple offers. And sure enough, as we were waiting there, that delightful listing agent told us all about her strategy and how she was going to approach this. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not going to do open houses. We feel that we're probably going to call for offers on Saturday. Our belief is this, and she's going on and on and on and on and on. And what it tells me is that although I'm going to be in a competitive situation, it's not going to be a standard issue competitive situation, because nobody's going to be able to see the property before the offers are due at an open house, because she's not going to do one, and she's stopping the showings at end of evening tonight. So if you have all these buyers that are working during the day that never got to see the property. So although we'll be in a competitive situation, it won't be a super intense competitive situation. So there might only be 5 or 6 offers versus 16 or 17. Right? But the listing agent was just happy to just ramble on, and I'd poke her with a question and she'd answer. Okay, great. I would never have answered the questions I asked, but she felt she was in a
So is
position
she
to
kind of breaking some fiduciary to her client? She didn't like it.
She was a well-experienced agent. I've dealt with her in the past, years ago. She probably doesn't remember it. And I remembered back then that she likes to talk. Some people like to talk. Whether you break it, whether some other agents breaking their fiduciary or not, is not of my concern. But if I can leverage that to my client's benefit,
Yeah.
am I not doing my job?
No, you are.
Right? So you're always going to ask the questions you're not supposed to ask. And a lot of times the agents will say, you're not supposed to ask that. Or will say, I can't answer that. Yeah, I thought I'd ask anyway.
Never know.
Don't think badly of me. Okay, but it comes back to this, whatever you write in this offer is telling the seller a story. So make it a darn good story and make it so that it's directed to get the seller's attention. All right.
So
before
Eric,
we start
when you-
going through
oh.
Yeah. Go ahead.
When you go over the purchase and sale, because you said this is one thing too, not the purchase and sale, sorry, the offer to purchase.
Yeah.
Would you only have to go over it, say with your client, pretty much once to explain it? I know you have to go through it like piece by piece with different offers, but because of this competitive market where like a lot of times, because there are so many offers, sometimes they're not going to get that first house that they're looking at, and then they might have to put in a couple different ones. So would it be like that one time going through piece by piece and then kind of just narrowing it down, like what you said, like, okay,
Yeah.
here's what I know about this house, X, Y, and Z. What do you want to do?
The answer is yes, that's how you approach it. My belief is that obviously the first offer you're going to write, you need to do really two things. You need to kind of go through them with the form. Here's the information that we're going to talk about, so give it some thought, and we're going to put it in here. But here's the explanation of this form that we're about to fill in and sign. And then once we filled it in, I usually go back with them and I'll turn it upside down and read it upside down with them and say, okay, here's paragraph 1. Remember, this is we're identifying the purchase price, the first deposit, the second deposit, the balance of what's coming, and the total. The next paragraph is the acceptance paragraph. Here's what this means, and specific to what we're saying to this particular seller. And I'll take it, I'll reiterate what the paragraph is, but add in the specifics that we've added into it so that they're comfortable with it, especially for first-time home buyers. If that offer doesn't get accepted and we get to the place where we're writing another offer, then yeah, I'm not going through it in detail. I'll remind them about it and say, okay, you know what, here's what I did. I was able to get some insight from this particular seller. They want to close sooner rather than later, this and that, blah, blah, blah. So let's make sure that the offer reflects to the best degree possible, knowing we're going to be in a competitive situation. Let's make it as personal as possible, and let's do everything we can to accommodate their requests, because the more requests we accommodate, the greater the chances are it's going to be accepted. Okay?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, at some point in your careers, the markets are going to flip, and you're going to be in a raging buyer's market, and it's kind of the same thing. It's, hey, here's the offer, and you know what? Let's go in $50,000 less. The worst they're going to say is no.
Mm-hmm.
And we go from there. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
That'll be interesting to see the opposite market.
It will be, but it's a lot more painful. It's a lot more painful. Because what's going to happen is that a number of listings are going to expand. The market will start to balance out from where it is, and you get into a little bit of a balanced market where it takes a couple weeks to get a property under agreement versus a couple hours. And then as the inventory keeps expanding, right? Now you're having to have a lot of conversations with sellers that no seller, with rare exception, is hearing today. We've had a bunch of people through the house and nobody's made an offer. We really need to do a price reduction because clearly the market's not accepting where we are. Those are really fun conversations. They were really fun conversations in 2008 when you're talking to somebody that bought the house in 2006 and you're telling them they got to drop the price 50 grand below where they paid for it 2 years ago. Not a fun conversation, but it's a conversation you have to have. Why? Because you need to do what? Tell them what they need to hear.
Reasonable care.
Right? Okay. So Jonathan, did you want to woo us with your exclusive right to buy agreement explanation?
Sure.
Go for it.
All right.
Peeking in.
That's okay.
No. Just in time.
Go ahead.
All right, Eric, so we just went through the disclosure form, and you said you understand all that, so that will help us understand this a little better, especially on some parts. And if you need to reiterate anything, just let me know.
Sure.
But this is the form where, that one was just a passing information about agency, this is where you would actually hire me as your buyer's agent.
Okay.
So this top section is really self-explanatory, just your name, your preferred location, general description, which we have an idea about. But after we finish going through this is when we get into that more fun conversation about what exactly you're looking for, and then we can start going more into specific properties. Basically like where HGTV picks up. Like you miss all this on TV, but we're getting to that right after this.
That's a good way to put it.
So something to look forward to once we go through this. This top unnumbered paragraph, one of the main things here is that this form, this agreement would be active or valid in both from Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Because we have agents in this office that are both licensed in Massachusetts and.
Because the office is licensed, remember there's a master license for the office. So I would just leave it at, the office is licensed in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire.
Okay, so the office is licensed both Massachusetts and New Hampshire. I know you were looking at Mass, but if it leads you to New Hampshire, we can take care of you as well.
Great.
So for the paragraph number 1, buyer's agent, because we just went over the disclosure, we already did go through the buyer's agency and what that means. Do you remember what that means? And did you have any questions?
I was like in something about an old truck or something like that.
Okay, close. It's an old car. So that specific acronym you're referring to is the fiduciary.
Okay.
So it will be,
Oh, right, yeah.
oh, you remember now?
I know.
Okay, perfect. So I will act in your best interest and uphold that fiduciary to you as your agent once this is signed.
Okay.
The duration of agency, pretty simple. This form will be valid for 6 months. Our agreement will be valid for 6 months.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word form, right? If you're gonna describe the document, describe what it is. It's an agreement or a contract.
This contract is valid for 6 months. So we'll see how long it takes us to find you the perfect home, as quick or as long as that takes. But this will be valid for 6 months, just to make sure we're covered. And next up is the buyer's obligations. Did you realize that you also have, well, we talked about it being a partnership.
Right.
So you remember that. That's essentially the next 2 paragraphs is your side of the partnership and then my side of the partnership.
Okay.
Right, so your side of the partnership is basically that you have to do your own due diligence as well. Where I owe you disclosure and I try to help you figure out these things about the house that you're gonna be buying, you also owe that to yourself. So that includes things about the property, but also the area. Part of that is also that maybe, for example, what you're looking for in an area or a town or a neighborhood may be different than what I would. So it is in your best interest to do your own research there. And
I thought I was having you to, you're the real estate guy, I'm not, I've never bought a house before, so how am I supposed to do my own research when I don't know what I'm looking for?
well, if you have questions, you can ask me. I'll be your main resource or the source of the source, if you will. So if you have questions, I can help. I can even go to the town hall with you if you want, but it's best that you're a part of that. So I can use all my expertise and experience to show you this is how the process goes. And when you bring up something of concern, I can help you find out the information. Does that make sense?
It does.
All right, great. So the next section would be my side of the partnership. And I basically need to help you make informed decisions using my expertise, my negotiating skills, my market knowledge, and that of my teams. Because as I think I remember you saying, you're excited that this was non-designated.
Oh, I was thrilled.
Right, when you found out you get Lillian too, it's just like, she's the one on the front of the building, and you get her too, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that's great. So we'll use all of our market knowledge and negotiating skills to help you there. But like I talked about, I'm not an expert in everything. I mean, I work in real estate, so if there's something such as an inspection or something that has to do with a lawyer, I'll direct you in the right direction.
Okay.
So I'll handle my things and I'll direct you in anything, direct you to the correct source if there's anything that I am not a professional in. Okay. Then we have the section that basically just says that you'll be working with me and only me, because like I mentioned before about how I work with people that want to work just with me, because I'm going to be leveraging a lot of resources resources. So that way we make sure that all my resources go to you and that you take advantage of this full spectrum of resources that we have. And that helps us ultimately reach the final product of you finding your home. So we both know that the end goal is you finding a home with me. We're on the same track and we're in it together. So that way there's no confusion. Does that make sense?
It does.
All right. The next section is the payment section, otherwise known as commission. It's probably a more common term. So our standard commission for a buyer's agent is 3%.
3% sounds awfully high to me.
Yeah, the good news is you won't necessarily, or you more often than not, you won't actually need to pay the full 3% because the listing agent more often than not offers a percentage to me for bringing a buyer, which is you. So for example, they offer 2%, you only got to cover 1%. And that can vary up or down, but the great news is that you can get all of my services and most likely only pay a portion of that fee.
Okay.
So that's a pretty good deal, right?
It is.
Yeah. All right. So the next part is the disclosure. So you and I both, in certain scenarios when we're talking to other people that don't know us, have to disclose who we are. So if I walk into a house and you happen to not be there, say you weren't able to be there, we're doing a virtual call or something,
yeah.
I have to say to that seller or that seller's agent and say, I just want to let you know, my name is John, but I'm representing my client.
Right.
And then same with you, if you were to go and open a house without me, then you would have to, when you go in there, you can tell them, or you should tell them, I'm working exclusively with an agent. And I'll give you a bunch of my cards. You feel free to pass those out.
Okay.
Then the next part we touched on a little bit, but I'm not hired as a zoning expert, tax advisor, attorney, etc. Basically anything where it's another profession, I can guide you in the right direction, but I'll guide you to one of those professionals to help you in that area.
Okay.
And so next part is something that we went over in the other form, the non-designated agency. We touched even on it a few minutes ago, but do you have any other questions about what us being a non-designated agency means for what we do for you or what?
No, as long as I get to work with Lily.
Okay, well, yeah, well, you're working with the whole team, but I'm your main point of contact.
Okay.
But if you want to talk to her at some point, I'm sure she's very friendly. I'm sure she'd be able to talk to you. And then the next is the consent to dual agency. So this is actually the consent part of it. When we talked about dual agency before, just me passing that information to you,
Right.
basically telling you what dual agency is, making sure you understand it fully,
Yep.
and how that could come about in our situation.
Yep.
Here, by signing the document, actually consenting to that, agreeing to it ahead of time, if you will, because right now we're just starting the process, so it would happen somewhere down the road if it were to happen.
Yep.
So do you understand what dual agency is?
Yeah, I'm buying a list. I might buy one of your listings and you're representing the seller and you're representing me.
Right, exactly.
So, but I guess I do have one question. So how do I know, because you said that you're going to be working in my best interest, how, you're not really working in my best interest though if you're representing the other party as well, isn't that right?
So we will definitely look out for your best interest. We can't work to the detriment of one party, would be a better way to say it in terms of dual agency. So if I am representing you as the buyer and, for example, this agent that we have, Madison, is representing a seller,
Okay.
then she will be the direct contact for her client and I'll be the direct contact for you.
Okay.
It is dual agency because technically the brokerage is representing both of you, but I will owe you confidentiality.
What happens if it's one of your listings, so?
If it's one of my listings, then a policy that we have at this office to go a step above and beyond to make sure that even from the outside, there's no thought that maybe there's something fishy going on, would be that I would assign one party of mine to another agent so that we can give confidentiality to both parties and work in their best interest. So that is how we would handle it. And then the other part of this here is that we are letting you know that even though you are consenting to it now, you're agreeing to it now, we will give you a notice.
Okay.
So you'll get another notice, but you are agreeing to it now. Just
That
another
notice
reminder.
Do I get a written notice? Is that what you mean?
Yes. Yeah, it will be a written notice.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, and declaration of agency, I asked you one of the times I first met you actually was are you working with another agent? And you said no. So part of signing this document is just reiterating that, saying, I'm definitely not working with another agent. I don't have one of these or something like this signed with any other agent. And you don't, right? Just
I do not.
double, triple, quadruple.
She said, yeah.
You know, I don't want you to be cheating on anyone that I wouldn't be good. So.
And when I write the offer, I can go, my brother who's licensed, he can write it for me.
No, well, I mean, he could, but you may run into a situation where you have to pay me a fee even though he starts doing some of the work, and then he's gonna say, where's my fee? You know, because I did work too, and now you're gonna be paying double fees, and you might as well just invite him to the house for him.
Oh, he told me it was for free. I shouldn't have to pay it then.
Oh, okay. Why did you decide not to work with him?
I'm just interviewing for practice, so.
Oh, okay. All right, well,
You never said why didn't you work with him? Because I just say, you know, right, I should have.
well, it must be something going on that you didn't want to work with him, but I'm sure he's a great brother. Maybe just not something you were looking for a real estate, which is totally fine. And then this next one is not even really a paragraph. It's just a really quick thing saying that it's possible that I could represent other buyers.
Okay.
Which means that I'm representing you and I have another buyer and you're both interested in 123 Main Street, and I bring you and I bring them, the chances of you both loving that property, wanting it to be a forever home and putting in an offer is slim, but it could happen. And in that case, we could be putting offers in.
So the only suggestion there is my preference for you on that paragraph is to go to the we mode versus the I mode.
Okay.
Right, and that we will represent, because then it's less, there's less emphasis on that. It might be you individually, because the minute you start saying it could be you individually, it starts raising questions in my mind saying, well, wait a second, you can represent somebody else. So it might cause you a little bit more pain in the explanation if you start saying, if I do represent other buyers. We just say, we represent other buyers.
Okay, and then only go into it further if you question it and by saying that we're giving this amount. Okay. So we would, the company may have two buyers interested in the same property.
Right.
All right. And equal opportunity, very simple. I will not discriminate against any protected classes. I wouldn't, I legally can't. And if you were to ask me to, whether it's intentional or not, I have this obligation to let you know, hey, that would be discriminating against protected class. We can't do that.
Yep.
And I'm sure you understand.
Sure.
And then this entire agreement and modifications thereof, basically two parts. One, that this is the entire agreement, two sides between the four corners, four sides. So nothing else is a part of this agreement. It's just everything on this, you see on this paper. And then modifications, it would be if you and I agree to modify something on here, we could make the modification and both have to initial it. That's something we'd have to agree on for that to happen.
So I can make modifications.
Only if we were to agree on it. So it would be basically a negotiation process. But like we said, this is pretty straightforward. I think we're on board so far. That shouldn't be a problem, but that's just how that's just how it works on contract. So you gotta put it in there. And then assignment. Basically, assignment is not allowed. So questions today, it's not allowed. So you could not assign this to anyone else. Do you know what assignment means?
I have no clue.
So it would be basically saying, I don't want this contract anymore, but my friend wants it. And he'll step into my shoes and take it from here. Everything we agreed on is still there, but he's gonna step into my shoes. That's not allowed. This is your contract only.
Yep.
Your friend wants a contract with me, send him my way, I'd be happy to sign one with him.
Okay.
Any other questions about what we just went over? No. All right, great. So sign here, press hard, and we get to work.
Great. How do you do?
Great.
So I'm going to make a suggestion that I haven't mentioned before, but I want, and I think now is the appropriate time. Remember that when you're in sales, you have to ask for the business consistently, all right? Because if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. Just like when you're prospecting, we're going to teach you when you're prospecting, whether it's Vulcan 7s or anything else, you've got to ask for it. And our method is when you're prospecting, you shouldn't be on the phone for more than 5 minutes. Your goal for prospecting is to set the face-to-face, so you need to ask for the face-to-face at least 5 times in that 5 minutes. I would say that in your explanation of this document, it would be much better for you to figure out how to incorporate asking for them to sign and hire you as you're going through that. And you're kind of looking at me going, well, wait a second, I can barely explain it. Now you want me to ask you to sign for it. Or higher. So you want to use terms, if you go back to the recording that I think I did, you know, at least once or twice in there, I certainly said, if you decide to hire me. Right? We're trying to paint the picture in their mind that they have to hire us to get the job done. Right? So if I've said, are you ready to hire me? Or reference that you have to hire me 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 times, don't you think it's going to make it easier for them when you actually ask them for that last time when done, are you ready to hire me? It makes it a little bit easier because it's not just out of the blue. So start figuring out in your explanations and in your practice, when you're practicing with each other and your scripts and your dialogues, whether it's for prospecting or signing, whenever you're signing this or the listing agreement, you need to start asking the questions and start planting the seed that they need to hire you.
I also liked what you did at the end when you said that your friend would have to come and sign with me too.
Yeah,
because
that was good.
that would make her think like, oh, maybe I have someone else we could work with. I don't know, that's kind of what I thought.
Okay. I need a 2-minute break just to grab some caffeine because I'm fading. So I apologize.
No worries.
Oh, so it's
It's Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday. My dog kept me up all night. So.
Your dog?
yeah.
I didn't even know you had one.
Of course.
Okay.
Big old chocolate Labrador retriever.
Ooh.
Look at that was what was barking.
My Instagram keeps freezing, you guys.
That was the one.
Okay.
Hi.
I forget sometimes you're there because I'm always facing away from you, Julie. Thanks.
I know. Well, today I faced you guys a little bit.
I know.
Don't mind me.
So I was saying, did you give your daughter like a little oatmeal bath yet?
No, I haven't given her a bath because I don't want, the doctor actually said not to, because then
Oh.
like this is gross, but if they have like little pus in that, that's how it
Oh.
spreads. So you don't
Oh.
want them to pop or her to itch them.
Maybe that's
But
the
they're not,
old school.
it's not as bad as like when we got it. Like, I feel like, I mean, I was covered like head to toe, but we didn't have the vaccine. So I think her having the vaccine once helped.
Yeah.
That's probably why I didn't realize that.
I have to
that's
poke my
what
head
the
into a
was.
pint meeting downstairs. I'll literally be right back.
Okay. I mean, that's, I'm glad she's not as bad as when we got it. I was really itchy.
I know.
My mom, though, my like neighbors down the street who I was friends with, they got it. And my mom's like, go play with, like, you kind of want
Go play with them.
Yeah, to get chicken pox.
I know, it was
Right?
so weird because I was talking with my parents about it, and I got it so bad, and literally probably I gave it to like everyone in the neighborhood and my cousins. My sister never got it. So my sister is 2 years younger than me. When she went to college, they wanted her to get the vaccine because they had it then. And so they test, you have to get a blood test. It's called a titer test. And then they'll see if you have the antibodies or not for it. And so we assumed she must have just got it, like, you know, like had 1 or 2, because we're like, how is this girl gone through all of these people and like never had it? She didn't have any antibodies, so she had to get the vaccine. Crazy.
And then you can get shingles too if you have the chicken
Yeah.
pox, you know?
Yeah. So that's what you have to be careful of.
Yeah. My grandmother got the shingles. It wasn't fun. It's way worse than the chicken pox.
Mm-hmm. And I think you can get shingles like a bunch of, it's not like, you know, it's chicken pox, like you get it once
Like
and you
one
never get it
time.
again. Yeah. Shingles, I think you can get a bunch of times. I don't know. There's always so many things.
It's like painful. But
Mhm.
I'm sorry she's not feeling good. Is she okay? Like,
She's been acting good, which is good. She's fine other than that. It's just like, I think she doesn't feel good a little bit, but she's just, it was like more like the first couple of days she was so itchy. So that, and we know when I said like she has hives, she was so itchy, and I gave her Benadryl that night because I called the doctor, and because she's so tiny, she's only 23 pounds, she's teeny, and she's like this little, when people see her, they're like, how old is she? I'm like 2.5. She's a teen. She's just a really petite little girl. She's
I
so
think I
funny.
was kind of like that. People always called me like Peanut.
Yeah, she is. She's a
I was-
peanut. And so I had to call to see how much I could give her, because I'm like, well, I don't want to OD my kids. So They called back and then I gave that to her. Those were like, that was like the worst of it for like itch wise. It just looks gross. Like you just feel bad. You look at her and you're like, ugh, the poor thing. Like it's.
I don't think, she won't even remember having it, luckily. I
Oh
don't
no,
think, you know?
no, because she's so little. Like I remember, I think I was 5. So I do remember like just being like super itchy. I think I remember more like I couldn't go and play with anyone. Like I was so, like you're
Yeah.
like isolated to one room and like couldn't do anything. But
Yeah.
I
Oh,
know.
well, I'm sorry. I had no idea she had it. You should have told me. I feel bad. I should have asked.
No, because I didn't even know. It was like one of those things where it's like, this isn't hives because it didn't go away, and then it changed, and like from what it looked like, I'm like, oh no, this is something.
Oh,
Julie, one sec. I'm gonna disconnect the audio for a sec. We'll be right back.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
be right back. Meeting, yeah.
I only got him to sign the disclosure so far, but
Oh, but did you present them this or no? Oh, I didn't know. I thought you-
no, I only presented the disclosure, but I told him that this was coming next.
Yeah.
But we had multiple conversations, total probably like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Plus emails back and forth, so I was like, they've had enough information for today.
It's like information overload. You,
Julie, you can still hear us now, right?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
It's probably a lot better now, right?
Yes, it is actually.
I added my phone in so that it's not through the phone that's recording.
Oh, awesome. Oh, I had a question for you guys. Eric said that he sent me a new one, but I only got one, like the first one that sent. Is there a big difference between the one that he sent originally and this
He
one
hasn't sent it yet, I don't think.
for the offer?
It just has like letters in the blank spots, like A, B, C, D, E.
but you can do it.
Okay.
I'll send it. Do you want me to send you pictures of it right now?
Yeah, do you mind?
No, I don't know.
Wait,
Thank
that's
you.
your job.
Yeah.
Her voice
Are you gonna?
Yeah,
Oh,
I wish you could do it better.
can you, is it much better?
Oh, just
Yes.
come into my office. That's on paper.
Your voice is over there now.
Then you
Here.
can
Oh,
scan
that's
it,
so
or I
funny.
have a
You're
digital
like
copy of it.
I know, that's
Yes,
weird. I feel like you're like
we can
sitting
get
on the
digital
paper right now.
copies and-
So for the open house on Saturday, are you going that? Thought you were on the open house. Okay, hold on.
Maybe there's another M.
No, I think it said massive.
Wait, did we go over the schedule for next week, or am I missing that?
What's schedule? Oh, I have no idea.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I wasn't sure. I didn't want to ask and then be like, oh, we did that. And I was like in a coma or something. What's- Sometimes my brain doesn't work that fast.
Saturday.
Julie, what's your email?
It's Julie, Julie, and then Weatherby, WETHERBEE @gmail.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
Julie Weatherby at Gmail. There's no numbers or anything.
No numbers, no.
Very cool.
Thank you for indulging that.
Copied up. So why was your dog keeping you up all night?
Because he's 14 and
Oh, he's not feeling
Oh, that's
Not
all.
feeling good.
That's all my dog.
sorry.
So,
My
thank you.
dog's 11. He's getting up there.
yeah, that's.
My 14-year-old
For
dog.
those of you who have children, which I think there's just Julie, it's like having a child.
Oh, yeah.
Kids, actually.
What's that?
It's 6.
I'm not even gonna go there.
I might have some that I don't know about.
So nice try.
Somebody on the phone here?
That's Julie.
Oh, got it, okay.
Quality's way better.
So, but so we were dealing with a little bit of a situation, and again, I like to share these things because I think it's worthwhile. So Joanna had a client, a listing client, and here's the situation that unfolded yesterday, or over the course of the week, but kind of came to a boiling point yesterday. So she was the listing agent on 67 Reservation Road. They got an offer on it. They negotiated it to 780. It was listed at, do you remember? I think it was listed like $15,000 less. So it was an overpriced offer. They were going through the process. They got the purchase and sale. The buyer was going through to get their commitment. The appraisal came back at $15,000 less, $14,000 less than the agreed upon price. The buyers made it clear that they weren't going to come up, and the sellers made it clear that they weren't going to come down. So we had this impasse, and we finally worked through it, and we split the difference. What we find out yesterday is that the appraisal, the buyers had already had their commitment, okay, had already had their commitment before the appraisal came in, and the commitment was not contingent upon the appraisal, and there was no contingency in the offer about an appraisal. So the sticking point for the attorney, understandably so, was, hey, wait a second, you're hoodwinking, the seller's getting a little bit of hoodwinked here, so that they're not going to, there was a mutual agreement that they'd split the difference and come down 7, come up 7. And so the seller's attorney stuck his heels in the sand and said, no, we're not going to do that. At the direct contradiction to the seller, his client. Should he have done that?
Nope. I don't think so.
If so, why? And if not, why not?
Because he represents the seller, and
Right.
I'm guessing that he also owes to follow all lawful instructions from his client.
Mm-hmm. Which is exactly the conversation I had with the attorney today. And how do you think an attorney appreciates when a real estate agent, a dumb real estate agent like me, lets them know about their fiduciary responsibilities and that they're not following it?
What'd you say?
Probably.
He was not particularly pleased with me. And I don't care. So.
He was like, oh, you're kind of right.
No, his response was because what I shared with him was that I was privy to the conversation that the client, our respective client, had with him. I was privy that the respective client certainly shared with me what his intent was, is that he wanted this done by noon, and that he had asked the attorney to draft this addendum to reflect these things that the buyer and the seller have actually agreed to. And the seller's attorney's response was, I'll get to it when I get to it. And my response is always, that's wonderful. Does that mean today? Oh, yeah, we'll get to it later today. Okay, what does later today mean? And I'll continue to, as unfortunately, as Luciano knows, I tend to peel the layer of the onion back pretty hard. And so as I pressed him for a date and time, I basically was starting to get a lot of attitude. At which point I reminded him of the conversation. And then I told him that if he wouldn't do it, that I would do it. And he told me he wasn't an attorney. And I said, I'm not an attorney. Doesn't prevent me from drafting something. I certainly would expect that you would review and approve it, but if you can't get to it, I will. He said, okay, go ahead, send it over. I said, well, it's going to come over, and you're also going to get a call from your client telling you that this needs to be done by 2 o'clock. He goes, don't tell my client to call me. I know what my responsibilities are. Okay, well, your client's going to call you and instruct you to do what you need to do. It got signed at 2 o'clock. So not because I'm right, but it's because the issue for us is that sometimes we have to be not sometimes, you always have to be cognizant of what's going on with your deal. Don't rely just on Pam to know what's going on. You know, most deals can go through with no issues, and that's fine. But she's going to copy you on everything. And when there's trouble, you need to be involved. If you don't know what to say or what to do, come get me. I'll be happy to coach you through it. I'll be happy to be involved. But it's just one of those things, and there are a number of attorneys out there that are what I refer to as deal killers. They're so staunch and dig their heels in so much because on principle that they're just going to kill the deal for the sake of killing the deal because they want to be right. Is that really the best interest of your client, especially if your client's saying, I don't want to do that? Okay? let's to go back to the offer to purchase for a second. So as we go through, and Julie, in your email, I think I sent you one that has these little letters and stuff in it. We'll save that portion of it for next week's session, but I want to kind of go through each paragraph and just run you through my explanation of what this offer is. It's fairly basic, right? And it's pretty straightforward, quite honestly, once you read it. It has a lot less legalese than the document that we've been pounding for the last week. But, you know, we've pre-printed in their owner of record. I generally put owner of record because I don't always know who the owner is, right? The public record is not always right. So putting owner of record will be there. Sometimes you have to put a specific seller in. If there's a relocation company involved on the seller's side, you may be required to name the relocation company. But without any other specific instructions, either through MLS or through speaking with a listing agent, owner of record should suffice. You're going to put the date the offer is written. You're going to put the address. The address is the street address, right? 123 Main Street, North Andover, Massachusetts. The approximate lot size is going to be preferably in square foot because that's what it's set up for. What's the square footage? You can usually pull that right out of MLS is usually in there. If it's a condominium, you're going to put not applicable. Why? Because it's a condo. What does that mean? Listen. Well, it's a unit, so there may or may not be land associated, specific land associated with it.
They basically own everything in the walls, not outside.
Right. So condominium is a form of ownership where there's both common and private ownership. You privately own basically from the four walls in, and everybody owns the hallways. And we'll get into condominiums at some point.
So for approximate lot size for condos, you put NA.
I just put NA because there is no lot, right? Because it's all commonly owned.
Yep, I get
It could be acres and acres, hundreds of acres. The book and the page is the reference to what, and the county, the registry is the reference to what registry of deeds the deed has been recorded at and what the book and the page is to that specific deed. Okay? Important to include that in an offer. Why?
Condo and there's different units.
Not just condo, but
If there's,
because there's a deed for every property, right?
yeah, it's like the idea of the property kind of.
It's the legal, it contains the legal description of the property, which is what makes it unique. Because remember, every piece of real estate is unique. Why? Because it's unique. It's not duplicated. Even two houses next to each other on the same street, built by the same builder. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I didn't write down book and page. It went kind of fast.
Okay.
Should I write this book and page? I apologize.
Book and page are the reference to where the deed has been recorded in the registry that's named there. So if it's the Essex North, typically in Massachusetts, there's two registries per county, usually typically a north and a south. Essex North, Essex South. Essex North is in Lawrence, Essex South is in Salem. Middlesex North is in Lowell, Middlesex South is in Cambridge.
You could always find those numbers when you look up the deeds on the top right of the page.
Okay.
Right? Or typically in MLS, typically in the public record, it's referenced there. Sometimes it's the wrong one, but okay. And remember, you get into places like Boston, you can have Tremont Place, Tremont Circle, Tremont Lane, Tremont Drive, Tremont, whatever. But there could be 4 streets with the name Tremont. So there you go.
Which one? Drive, Lane?
Street.
Street.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. You're going to identify who the listing office is. It's Coldwell Banker. It's even if it's us, you put us in there, LMSPI, instead of writing it all out. Okay, we've pre-written in there that we're the selling office, which means the buyer working with the agent working with the buyer. Okay. Paragraph 1 is the price and the deposit. So line 1 is hey, here's the total purchase price. You don't have to write this down because we're going to go through it. I'm just giving you the 5-second. You can write it down. You're welcome to. I'm just going to go through it fast. Okay. Line A is deposit with the offer. Generally $1,000, can be less. It's always negotiable. It is negotiable, but common practice, and I'll use that word a lot when writing offers. Common practice, meaning that's what's typically done, is $1,000. If you have a buyer that is an FHA buyer, or maybe they're a VA, then it might be $500, or it could be something less. There has to be a dollar value there. It could be $100. I have literally put properties under agreement with $200 in total in deposits. Okay. Line B is deposit that accompanies the purchase and sale agreement. Pursuant to our conversation earlier, if there is no purchase and sale agreement, there may not be a second deposit. The North Shore Association of Realtors form contemplates a second deposit, but doesn't contemplate a purchase and sale agreement. Okay, but when you get into New Hampshire, not to confuse matters, it's one document, two deposits. Not one document, one deposit, like Massachusetts commonly is, offer and purchase and sale. You'll see line C says the balance. That just means all the other monies are coming at the closing. And it might be a combination of down payment. It might be a combination of mortgage monies, gift monies, whatever it is. So here's the operative question for you. What is the difference between a deposit and a down payment? Because you will get these confused. I guarantee it. I promise you, you will. No matter how much we talk about it, you will get it confused on your first offer. So what's the difference between the deposit and a down payment?
Deposit can be lost. Well, can a down payment be lost as well?
Lost. What do you mean
Like-
lost?
If they decide not to go through with this, even though it's both signed and it's legal at this point, they can,
I kind of like where you're going.
they can break off and you're.
The answer is both can be lost, and it
Okay.
depends.
And down
so-
payment is a portion of the house that you're buying it at?
Okay, so the deposit is used for what? It's used for the contracting process, right?
Yeah,
So
we keep the deposit, right?
I mean,
Who keeps the deposit?
it's usually kept in escrow by an escrow agent,
No, I'm saying, but if,
but not get into default.
okay,
So deposits are used for the contracting process, right? So when there's an offer, you're putting in a deposit, a good faith deposit, is saying, hey, I'm serious, I'm real. And then you're adding that as part of the valuable consideration in the purchase and sale, you're saying, in addition to signing this purchase and sale, I'm going to give you some more money to hold my feet to the fire. Okay? So it's part of the contracting process. The down payment is part of the, how do I want to say it? It's part of the purchase process, meaning and it's related to the buyer's finances.
Does it have to do more with a mortgage versus, or does it depend?
Well, it does, right? Because remember, what is your mortgage made out of? It's made out of down payment plus, and so when you go to a mortgage company, they're going to say, how much do you have to down pay? I got $10,000 or whatever the dollar value is. Then there's this thing called LTV, loan to value. Loan to value is the purchase price minus the down payment gets you the loan to value. What's the size of the loan? And generally, this is done in the form of a percentage. You'll hear 20% down payment means I have an 80% loan to value. So you'll start hearing these things. Okay? I would encourage all of you to reach out individually. We'll get you his name and number to Shant, S-H-A-N-T, Banosian, B-A-N, B the boy, A-N as in Nancy, O-S-I-A-N. He is the #1 loan officer in the country. He happens to be our loan officer of choice. Jessica, you might have some other sources, okay? They have this discussion with you. Let them know you're new in real estate and you want to understand the role of the lender and the terminology used. And I know Sean will do a great job, or one of his staff members will help you with that. Okay?
Maybe we should do a group call of like a few.
You could, absolutely. Okay. So one of the things I always like to make sure that you all know going into this, right? There is a relationship between these two things. Okay. Your deposits are generally made up of monies that are going to be used for the down payment. You following me? So when I'm going to go buy a property, I'm going to make this deposit. The money I'm using is really part of my down payment. Okay. My down payment, the deposit, So my deposit is gonna be made up almost totally, with rare exception, of down payment money. My down payment might be significantly larger than what the deposits are, so my down payment doesn't necessarily encompass all of the deposits, right? So there's this relationship between the two, but my deposits are the dollars I'm putting down into the transaction to hold my feet to the fire, and I am at risk of losing them if I breach the contract for any reason that I can't breach it. My down payment is the amount of money I'm putting down, and I've agreed with the bank that they're gonna give me the other portion of that money. Okay, everybody following me? We'll get more into it later. I just want to have a quick one. Paragraph 2 is the acceptance paragraph, right? A term and condition. That paragraph basically is saying this offer is good until this time on this day. And so why do you write that in? It's because you don't want your offer to be out there forever and a day. And you're going to use that time frame to help tell your story. For example, I wrote an offer on 8 Carmel, which we mentioned at the meeting, which I knew was going to have many offers. It ultimately had 17. And what I did on Saturday, because it said in NLS, the seller will consider offers prior to the offer deadline, was I put the offer in at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and told them I wanted a response by 8 o'clock at night. I wanted it done. We were going to get it done. I wanted it done before the open house the next morning. Okay? They opted not to take the offer. The offer was refused. We withdrew it. We resubmitted it, and in that offer, we changed in addition to changing the dates, we changed the offer acceptance to be 24 hours after the offer deadline date, because that was the instruction to do. So you're going to modify your offer acceptance timeframe based on some criteria. Generally speaking, it's going to be 18 to 24 hours in a normal situation. In a multiple offer situation, you likely, if you're not doing it as a call for offers, but you're trying to get it accepted quickly ahead of somebody else's, you're going to shorten that time frame. Shortest time I've ever done is an hour. I got an earful from the list of you, but it doesn't matter. That's what my clients instructed me, and that's what we put forth. Paragraph 3 is the inspection clause. What does that say? Let's read that one out loud. Who would like to read that? Jessica, let's go.
This buyer is subject to the buyer using reasonable and diligent effort to obtain at the buyer's option and expense a complete home and real property inspection, including but not limited to termite, pest, lead paint, radon, septic system, well and water inspections on or before, I guess there's a date there, right? From a person normally engaged in the business of conducting such inspections. If the buyer is not satisfied with the results of such inspections, then at that form from a person, option of the buyer, with written notification, this offer shall be null and void, and all deposits returned to the buyer. Should the buyer fail to notify the seller or his agent in writing no later than 24 hours after the aforementioned date, then it shall be conclusively presumed that the buyer is satisfied with the inspection, and this continuation shall lapse, and the buyer shall be bound to perform his obligations under this offer. In the event the buyer does not elect to have such inspection or to terminate no later than 24 hours after the aforementioned date, the seller and the brokers are hereby released from liability relating to defects in the premises which the buyer or buyer's consult would reasonably discover. If applicable, the mandatory lead paint disclosure form is attached here too. Yeah, sorry, I lost my new sentences are like long.
So what does that all mean?
So it's saying, it's talking about having, the inspections done and the time frame to get them completed by.
So the buyer's requesting, and the seller by signing this is granting the buyer the right to do an inspection.
Right.
The inspections of their choice, paid by the buyer within a certain time frame.
Got it.
Okay, that's the first part of the sentence. What's the next sentence?
If the buyer is not satisfied with the results of the inspection, so I feel like if they're not happy with how it comes out, do they have flexibility on?
I don't know, what does
They have
satisfactory
20
mean? What does satisfactory mean to each of you?
You
Define
said
the
you're-
word.
Ready to move forward with buying a house as it states, I guess. They have
Right, but
24 hours.
define satisfactory.
It's
Is
subjective.
it possible? Go
Yeah.
ahead, Julie, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Well, it's really subjective. So like you might have certain things on there that people might like, if an inspector could find a bunch of things wrong, but for you, you're like, oh, that's not a problem. But maybe it's this one thing that you can't live with and you're like, that's not satisfactory to me. I don't want it.
Right, and so what happens if if it's unsatisfactory, there's a triggering mechanism. What's the triggering mechanism and how does that work?
You have to, in writing, notify your agent, or your agent has to notify the seller within that time period that date stated, within that 24 hours. And then the contract's null and void. If you don't, then you're saying it's okay.
Right, so by no later than 24 hours after that date, right? So you can certainly do it before, but it's saying by no later than 24 hours after the date that I can do the inspection. So I have a time period that I can do the inspections, and I built within the paragraph with an additional 24 hours in case you do the inspections on that last possible day. You still have 24 hours to make the decision of whether it's satisfactory. The decision to be satisfactory is purposely written because this is what? A form for whose buyers? Our buyers. It's purposely written to be vague, right? Because satisfactory inspection to me might be unsatisfactory to you. I want to leave it to the buyer. If the buyer really wants to wiggle out of the deal, not that I'm looking to give ways to buyers, even my own clients, to wiggle out of the deal, I still want them to have that ability. If they find something they don't like in an inspection, I want them to walk away, which is why we don't sit there and say, only if there are serious mechanical or structural issues. Well, again, why don't we write it that way? Because what's your definition of serious mechanical? Right? So we try to write it as vague as possible in this particular circumstance to benefit the buyer. Make sense? Okay.
Eric,
And then the rest of the paragraph. Go ahead.
Is it customary practice for it to be 10 days? At first I thought it was a law because I just remember when we were looking, it was always written for 10 days. I just know that stuck in my head.
Customary is probably the word I would use outside of this office. In this office, it's 7 to 10 days.
Okay.
Okay, and again, your time frames do what? They tell a story.
Tell a story.
If I'm going to be in a multiple offer situation, I'm probably not going to write a home inspection contingency for 14 days. I'm probably going to write it for 7 or less.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I might even go as far as to pre-schedule a home inspection so that in the offer, not only we're going to do a home inspection within 7 days, but Mr. Seller, we like this house so much, I've already scheduled an inspection for next Monday at 2 o'clock if you accept my offer. Again, what does that tell the seller something about who the buyer is? Of course it does. So there are all these little techniques to make sure that you employ or not. But for me, the big issue with the home inspection, if you ever read the Greater Boston Board of Real Estate form, their home inspection contingency is totally different. What theirs says is it says something, and I'm paraphrasing, says to the effect of, buyer has the right to do these inspections, blah, 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 and pay for them. And if they find, issues that cost in excess of, and there's a dollar value of X dollars or more, then the buyer can walk away. And again, you need to know those contracts. I remember not so long ago with an experienced agent that they wrote that on one of my listings. They came back and said, well, the buyers want to walk away because the threshold, I think, was 10,000. The amount of stuff they came back with was 8,000. And they still thought that they could get out of the deal. So now they start coming back at us with revised contractor estimates that all of a sudden exceeded $10,000. So you have to know what you're reading. You have to know what's being presented to you, to your seller, or what you're writing for your buyer. Next paragraph, purchase and sale agreement. Again, bifurcated process in Massachusetts is customary, not required. I strongly suggest that you follow the customary practice unless there's good reason not to. Okay, purchase and sale, what is it? It's just, think of it as a
a more detailed contract than the offer. And it's more detailed because it's 4 or 5 pages long. Oftentimes there's a rider attached to it by the attorneys. In Massachusetts, what happens is that the attorneys get a chance to negotiate the language in that purchase and sale to best reflect the rights and legal protections of their respective clients. The reason why we have a PAM and the reason why you need to pay attention is oftentimes the attorneys decide to tweak things. And they make things up and they throw things in the purchase and sale that were never contemplated in the offer. Or they misconstrue the things that were in the offer. So thank God for PAM, but you also need to be paying attention. Because the minute that purchase and sale gets signed, that then becomes the overriding guiding contract that guides the property to close. Okay? And if you look at the language between the 2 paragraphs that's indented on both sides, in caps, in bold, it's the language, write this down, from the Tobin versus McCarthy case of 25 or 30 years ago, which essentially stated that an offer is a contract and can be used to purchase a property. And I think if most of you were there, Lillian explained it last week. I won't go into it now just because we're a little tight on time. Happy to go through it with you another time. But that language there basically says the following. Let me summarize it for you. It basically says, hey, this is the contract now. If, as and when a purchase and sale is signed, that this contract will be null and void and be subordinate, meaning be junior to the purchase and sale that is signed.
Sorry, you said that it already says that in here?
Right there. Okay. The bold one. Paragraph 5 is the financing commitment. What is this saying? It's saying to the seller the following. Mr. Seller, I as the buyer am going to apply for my loan on a certain date or by a certain date. I'm also going to get a conventional FHA or VA loan, circle the correct one, cross the others out, in the amount of, and you can either give a dollar value or the loan to value percentage, 80% loan to value. And I expect to get my commitment, which is the approval from the lender saying you're good to go. I'm going to get that commitment by a certain date. Okay. What it also says is that if I don't do that, and I come back to you after the fact, after that certain date, and say that I can't do it, you get to keep all my deposits. So this paragraph is totally on the buyer. You following me? Yeah. Totally the responsibility of the buyer, which is why we're one of the only firms when the commitment comes up and it's on our listing. Yeah, I probably poke the agent or poke the buyer's agent rather, you know, hey, we haven't gotten appraisal, where's the appraisal, just to keep it going. But on the day of commitment, I don't say a word. Why? Because it's not our responsibility, and my saying something might actually trigger them to get a letter of denial and kill the deal. Now, any mortgage officer will tell you, and Sean, when you speak to him, or somebody you know might tell you, that for any lender to issue a letter of denial, it better be true and accurate, because if it's not, that's called fraud. So getting out, buyers often will come to you and say, hey, if I get cold feet, how do I get out of the deal? You don't. You don't get out of the deal because you have cold feet. You get out of the deal in a standard offer process. You can get out of the deal one of 2 ways. One, if you're writing on our home inspection, you can get out as a result of the home inspection. You go through a home inspection and find something that you don't like, that's not satisfactory to you, then you can walk away from the deal and get your $1,000 back or your offer deposit back. Secondarily, if you go through the commitment process and are denied a loan, denied the right to get a loan, not the right, but denied a loan, as long as you can document that, then you get to, and you do it before that commitment date, you get to walk away from the deal and get your money back. Okay? But a day after that, you come back and say, I didn't get it, or you forgot about it, your deposits, all of your deposits are at risk.
So at that time, say they don't get it by the commitment date, their deposits are
to the sellers, does that mean that they're out of the contract and everything, or does it keep going, or can it keep going at that point?
It would keep going. There's no, you know, it depends on, and again, everything depends, right? Because everything's an individual situation, but to the letter of the contract, it doesn't say that the contract dissolves. All it just says is that, you know, so let's do this. I'll do it if it was me. So I write an offer to buy your house, okay? In that offer, our commitment says that I have to, by today, have my commitment. It doesn't say that I have to communicate it to you, does it? It just says I have to have the commitment, and what it really says is that if I can't get a commitment today, if I want to get my money back, I got to tell you by today and show you that I have a letter of denial. I fall asleep, I wake up on Monday and go, I didn't get a commitment. I can go back and say I didn't get a commitment, and you're going to say, no problem. You don't want to buy the house. I'm going to keep your money. But the deal isn't dissolved at that point until we agree to dissolve it, right? So in theory, I could go by and say, okay, well, you didn't get my commitment. All that I've done is I've waived my right to get my deposits back because I didn't do it in time.
Mm-hmm.
I might still be able to get the commitment, and I may still be able to close, so I'll just keep going. What I've done is basically waive my right to get my money back if I can't get the commitment. So I wake up Monday, I have the commitment, who cares? Right? Now, a lot of other offices, the listing office, your listing agent, if you're outside of here, is going to be calling me every 5 minutes on the day the commitment's due. It's really not their responsibility to do that. You can if you want, but because that might trigger me to go, oh shit, that's right, I need an extension.
Mhm.
Or I need to talk to my lender. Maybe my lender is going to give me a letter of denial. But I wasn't going to be able to get it till Monday. Now I have to get it. Thank you for reminding me. I'll go get it right now. So it may not be in our seller's best interest to do that. Right? Because it's a buyer responsibility, which is the biggest misconception, one of the biggest misconceptions in real estate. Ask your friend.
Just mortgages.
Uh,
That's why I keep saying that. Everyone's probably like, what is she talking
I
about?
thought it was common knowledge, so.
Sorry, no, I tried to, I didn't want to like do anything on a line title.
That's okay. The next paragraph is the closing paragraph. When is the closing? Of particular note, you will notice the word clear and marketable title. What does that mean?
It means there's no clouds on the title.
What is a cloud?
It's a lien or something that could be, I don't know what another word, but am I going the right direction?
Yep, absolutely.
something
It's
that,
something like that's not correct and that needs to be resolved.
something that could prevent the transfer of the title?
Right, or something that said, hey, maybe this owner isn't the owner, or there was an issue in the past. There are things like insurable title.
Mhm.
And all that means is that it's not necessarily clear and marketable title. The two are very different, right? Because on an insurable title, there was a cloud or issue with the title, but the title insurance companies indemnified or overwrote the issue. Doesn't necessarily make it clear and marketable. Okay, so you don't have to go to the extent, you'll see it in offers presented to you all the time, because not all offers specifically pre-print in their offer forms clear and marketable titles. That's what you want. If you're ever writing an offer on a different form, make sure it says clear and marketable title. If you want a really good explanation of it, go find Bobby Lombard. His first deal, we had all kinds of issue with insurable versus clear and marketable title. And his buyer walked away from the deal because he was not going to get clear and marketable title. Why did he walk away? Great question. Because even though the seller's title insurance company said, yes, we'll insure it, we'll indemnify it, he takes on that liability when he goes to sell it. It's possible that his buyer's title insurance company won't accept it. Just because one insurance company underwrites it, whatever the right word is, doesn't mean that they're all going to do that.
And isn't it true that sometimes like a deed should be recorded, it doesn't have to be recorded? Like, but it's not good to not record the deed.
So let me ask you a question. When does the buyer take official ownership of a property?
Is it when the deed is, transfer of title.
Which means what?
When the deeds are recorded.
But, okay, wait, then I thought I saw like something when I was like studying that sometimes something isn't done and it's like, then like if you buy the property, it still belongs to the previous person. I forget what that's called.
I feel like that's what
like a-
easements maybe, like when they're walking on the easements, like the right of way. Is that what you're thinking?
You're thinking adverse possession, I think.
Yeah, no, it's not that. It was a weird thing.
I think I don't know the answer to your question, but I think I remember what you're talking about.
There's probably something like if they sign the purchase and sale and everything and all that's signed, do they own the property or when do they own it? And the answer to that question was when it's actually
They
recorded.
might own equitable title, but they don't own full title.
There's something. I'll find it.
I remember a
Yeah,
question
please
like
find
that.
Curiosity.
So the question's still out there, when does the buyer officially own the property? When is it their property?
When it's recorded.
When it's recorded, do you
Does it-
agree? Yes or no? Good, we're right.
Transfer the title.
Transfer of title, what does that mean?
It's when, I guess I agree.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
Or deed recorded.
He's so confident. I'm gonna go with the detail.
Yeah.
Maybe I was saying it wrong.
I mean, and deeds have to be in writing, like, as a deed, so it's like.
Statute frauds.
Deed, yeah. All right, I'll find what I'm thinking of something and I.
Julie, what do you think?
I think he's right, because I literally was just studying this and they said, you're confused because a title's not a piece of paper. It's just the deed is the actual paper that is signed, and that's how people kind of prove they have title. You can't just go, oh, here's my title. It's not a piece of paper. It is what I just read, I think. Hopefully, I'm not saying you're wrong.
Well, it is a piece of paper, and the minute I hand you the deed to my house, you own it.
Right. So
Okay,
the
that's-
deed is a piece of paper, but not title. Right?
Well, the deed is what declares, if I hand you a deed, right?
Right.
If I hand you a deed at a closing, it's gonna have your names on it. It's gonna say, I, Eric, grant to you, Julie, the property located at blah, 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 in consideration for, and it gives you the whole description. If that's on there and I signed it and I hand that to you, you own the property,
Right.
period. Now, why is it recorded? It's recorded so that you can document the trail of ownership. And so if you go before a court and somebody says, well, I've got the deed, and then somebody else says, well, I've got the deed, if one of those is recorded and one's not, where's the court likely to go? With the one that's recorded, because it's out in the public domain, and that's why all these get recorded. Now, the big issue is you're gonna be sitting at a closing and somebody's gonna give the deed, right? The seller signs the deed. Half the time these days, the seller doesn't even show up to the closing. And then the closing occurs and the buyer says, well, where are my keys? And the seller says, you ain't getting the keys. You're not getting the keys until you're on record. Technically, that's not accurate. But it's the banks that generally will say, in the bank's mind, because he who has the money makes the rules, because the banks have the money, the banks are the ones that dictate that, you know, will say to the closing attorney, the keys can be released if we now have the money's been released or the money's been received.
What paper is that part in writing that says
What?
that from the bank?
There isn't.
Is it?
There isn't. A good question, but there isn't.
Yeah.
So the reality is that when you're at a closing, and I challenge you not to, I wouldn't even do this, but I wouldn't be challenging an attorney if they say, you're not getting the key, here's the deed, but you're not getting the keys. There's a recording issue, right? Most places don't want the keys released until the funds are in hand, right? Think about it. I give you the keys to my house, but I haven't received the $500,000 for it. I'm going to get a little nervous if tomorrow comes, because it could possibly happen that the funds were delayed for some reason. All of a sudden, you're having free use of the house that you have a deed for, but I've never received money for. So somebody's I could make an argument in court that I didn't get the valuable consideration, the deal wasn't done, the deed was given prematurely. I can make all kinds of different arguments. But technically, in the state of Massachusetts, somebody hands you a signed deed, an original signed deed, you own that property.
Maybe I'm thinking of like another state where I
Could be.
I don't know, sorry,
Don't be.
can't remember that
Don't be.
area.
Okay, the next paragraph talks about where the deposits are held. Who are they held by?
Escrow, what is an escrow agent?
Broker.
What's that?
Broker.
Does it have to be a broker?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes. It has to be.
So attorneys can't hold deposits? Title companies can't hold deposits?
And, but not, no.
I thought it
It's
was
for
your.
a third part, or any third party.
A designated third party that
Okay.
is certified to be able to do that. Okay, what makes an escrow agent? They have to follow, think of it like this now, 98% of the time on our listing, customarily, there's that word again, we are the escrow agent. But what happens if there's a dispute? Just because the seller's my client doesn't mean I can release the funds in his or her favor. I have to hold on to those funds regardless of what I think is right or wrong, until I have what? A written agreement by both parties directing me to give the funds to one party, give the funds to one party or both parties or what have you, or I get what's called an interpleader from a court where the court directs me to release the funds to one party or the other, or to release the funds to the court. Okay, yes, sir.
So how is that a designated third party if we're holding in an escrow?
Because I wear two hats, right? It's my company. We are a designated escrow agent. Let's not use the word designated, actually. We're an escrow agent, but just because I'm an escrow agent doesn't mean I have to hold the deposits. But if I do, I have to follow those laws. And those laws are very specific for me, right? So my buyer and seller get into some type of disagreement. The buyer walks away and demands the deposits. I think my seller's in the right. I can't just say, my seller's right, here's the money. I have to wait for those written instructions that are signed by both the buyer and the seller and take the direction that are in those instructions and follow that instructions, okay? I can tell you that there's some very specific language in the purchase and sale when we're escrow agent, that if the attorneys don't allow that language, what we say to them, and we're the only office that does it, don't ask me why, we'll say to those attorneys, okay, we're not the escrow agent, one of you get to be, because we're not going to do this, and here's why. Almost 20 years ago, we had a situation with a property in Andover. There was a house to sell contingency that was on one of our listings. There was a debate as to whether the buyer was actually doing what they were supposed to do contractually to get the house sold. Once the house was sold, was it done in time? And the buyer ultimately walked away, and the seller said, I'm keeping the money. And for 8 months, they went back and forth between their attorneys and so on and so forth. The buyer filed suit in the court. Okay. All the while, I've got $30,000 sitting in our escrow account. Okay. The buyer goes to court, and guess who gets dragged to court and gets deposed? Lillian's the broker of record, so she goes, so there's an entire day out of her schedule sitting in front of attorneys getting deposed. Eric goes because he's the manager and has to oversees all of these operational things with Lillian. So that's two of us out of the office for an entire day. Any idea what attorneys charge per hour?
Yeah.
Call it $400. So there's $2,400 just to cover me, $2,400 just to cover Lillian. My per hour rate's probably not quite as high as Lillian, but think about what Lillian can get done in a day, deal-wise. That was a very, very expensive day for her. Okay, so what we did, just like all the things in this offer and things in the purchase and sale, what we did was we had one of our attorney friends give us language that in typically paragraph 16, the deposit paragraph in our standard purchase and sale, basically says, hey, buyer and seller agree that if there's a deposit dispute, they will pay for the escrow agent's attorneys to be involved, and that they are going to indemnify us, meaning you can drag me to court, but it's going to cost you to drag me to court. It's not going to cost us to be dragged to court, just because we're the escrow agent. We have to follow these escrow laws. Okay.
So at that time,
Yes.
because like on this, it's escrow, but then on the other, on this, we would be escrow. So we would have that $1,000
Could be.
technically.
You might
we
write
would
it off
transfer
for
it
a
to that.
buyer on for sale by owner. I certainly don't want the for sale by owner to hold the deposits.
Mhm.
So we might write ourselves in even as the buyer or agent as the escrow agent. But again, we wear that hat. It's a separate hat that we wear over here. When we're over here, we receive these monies and we hold these monies until we have these written instructions to do something with the money. The written instructions are from the parties because they've dissolved the transaction and the funds have to get dispersed in a specific way, or we're going to a closing where we've received authorization from both parties to distribute those funds to the closing attorney, who will then account for them and send them on their merry way, essentially. Okay, then you have this open paragraph called additional terms and conditions. That's where you write any number of different contingencies. And again, we're not going to get into, I'll give you copies of the contingency examples. They're just a small fraction of the potential things you'd write there. Please do not free-form contingencies, at least not in the early part of your career. Please see me. My preference is to see me. In my absence, will you? In both of our absence, and see one of the more senior people. But what I want you to take away from, and we'll spend time on later, in contingency is the if what, then what. And what do I mean by that? If this happens, then that has to happen, or if this doesn't happen, then this doesn't. So in the event that the buyer can't sell their house by such and such a date, this offer dissolves and the buyer gets all their money back. Or I could just write this, the buyer has until such and such a date to get the property sold. That doesn't really help me. What happens when I get to that date? So we have to kind of define those things. If you go down underneath that, there are 3 pre-printed bullet points that almost every listing agent misses. And we purposely wrote it this way, and it has saved some of our clients lots of money. Okay. The first one is that the property must appraise at or above the agreed upon price. Very important that that's in there. Even though it's part of the standard mortgage contingency, unwritten, if it's written in the document, it makes it a lot easier for us to extricate our buyers when they have an issue related to an appraisal, which we will see. Here's what's going to happen. As the market shifts, we will start seeing some appraisal issues. The second has to do with, let me just get, the first is the integrated mortgage disclosure. That's just the 3rd page of the offer. That went into effect in 2015. That was the result of the Dodd-Frank law from 2009. It's just about the different disclosures that the loan office of the loan companies have to provide, and that the seller agrees in advance that if the loan companies don't do that, then it's possible some of these dates have to get pushed, and they're automatically agreeing to push those dates up to a certain amount. Second point is the appraisal purchase price to appraise. The property is supposed to appraise at the purchase price or above. And the third is written related to condominiums. If it's a condominium, then it's basically saying, hey, we need all these documents prior to the purchase and sale to be able to evaluate whether or not we're going to sign a purchase and sale. Okay, and then I want the master deed, the declaration of trust, I want the budget, I want the covenants, and we hard coded this in here because it's my experience with agents. No offense to any of you in the room or myself. It's always the last thing you think about, and you never think about it when you're writing the offer, especially in a condo, that I have to get all this documentation in order to be able to review before we sign a purchase and sale.
That's the 60 thing too?
Nope,
Oh,
the is
separate?
something else.
Okay.
With this, so it says within 3 days of the accepted offer. So say the seller didn't get that to the buyer until 5 days after,
Mhm.
then could you keep going, but then at some point, say you get close to you want to back out, could you then fall back on that?
If you don't do it at the time of, then there's this implied, you will get to discussing about implied and intent, and there's some non-discussions you want to be having. Every attorney is going to somehow validate the intent of their client, right? And are you operating in good faith, or are you operating in bad faith? They're very real legal concepts. They're very arbitrary and hard to prove.
Yeah.
But they will be brought up. You'll be sitting in the courtroom and they'll be say, okay, well, they were operating, she operated in bad faith, you operated in good faith, and you operated with intent, you were operating without intent. Define that. How do you operate with intent? Okay, so I wrote an offer and I did these things. Okay, there was intent there, but because you didn't give me the documents in time, were you operating in bad faith, or did you just forget it? Or, what you want to do as an agent is always be mindful of your trigger dates, the dates that are in these offers that cause things to happen, or things that have to be done by that time, and be aware of them, and don't go, oh yeah, that was supposed to be yesterday. That's never a good answer in real estate. The answer needs to be, this is happening tomorrow, I need to make sure it's happening, and if it's not, I need to get an extension today, not wait until tomorrow. Okay, and so what we'll do in wrapping up now is when we come back on Monday, we'll finish off with the exclusive right to buy agreements for those of you who haven't done it. and we're going to go through and we're going to talk about the offer again. But at this point, I'm going to talk to you about the timeframes that you use, and I'm going to relate back to the back page of the document. I gave you the document I sent you, Julie, that says, okay, A equals, so A in the acceptance paragraph equals this. What is this? And it's a guidance to help you write an offer in case I'm not around. Okay, your first 5 offers I would like to personally sign off on before they get presented. Okay, not because I don't trust you, it's because your client is my client, and I need to make sure from a liability perspective, we're not writing something in the offer that's going to cause them pain, or omit something in the offer that's going to cause them pain. As you get more practice with it, we'll give you greater lengths of rope, hopefully not to hang yourself, but remember that we're always here to help you write contingencies. These are legal binding documents. When you write words on them, you are considered, in theory, to be potentially playing attorney. Please don't do that. If you're unsure, come see me. I'll play attorney if I can get away with it, even though I'm not an attorney. And I can only get away with it because I've been doing it for 20 years and I know what the attorney is looking for. And I have seen plenty of examples, and I've got my own set of contingency examples that I'll go refer to because I don't know that much. I like to steal everybody else's ideas. Yes.
You just said Monday. Is the schedule different next week, or is that?
No, it's just me being an idiot.
Okay. So same 2 to 4, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then.
Well, Wednesday we've got
Oh, there's Zillow.
Zillow, so it'll be 2 to 4 on Tuesday for sure, and 1 to 3 on Friday. So my goal is to just hit this, finish off exclusive right to buy agreement by end of day Tuesday, Friday. So, and Tuesday I'll give you the exclusive right to list agreement. We're going to do the same thing, except we're going to truncate it. I'm not going to make you present it all, but I'm going to go much quicker when we get to that, because it will probably be longer before you get to a listing versus an offer. And then from there, we're going to start the following week. We'll try to wrap up and we'll get into lead paint disclosures, and then I'll try to teach you how to value a piece of property. How do I determine how do I do a CMA? Okay, now, if you need help on any of that in between now and then, come see me and I'll get you there.
Perfect.
So for the week following next week, we'll do the same schedule we did this week.
Yes.
And the week after.
Let's see how we get through. I don't want to keep dragging this out. I'm
Okay.
sure you guys are getting tired of sitting there with some of the blow hot air at you.
Helpful.
I appreciate that it's helpful, but I want you to start standing up on your own feet. And some of this you got to learn by doing and bumping in the wall.
I'm sure I'll go.
I it's fine.
Smash into the wall.
Yeah, you won't bump, you just smash. Where do you think come from? No.
I don't know where she was, but I didn't try.
So-
Thank you.
Thank you. Any
Thank
questions? I can answer for you. Julie, any questions before you go?
No, I'm good right now. Thank you.
Okay. Jessica, anything? This or anything? Doesn't really matter. Madison?
Okay.
All right.
I have a question.
Okay, go for it.
So say someone in this office has a rental, like they're listing a rental, and somebody else in this office finds them a receipt for the rental?
Yeah.
How does that work? Or like, how does the compensation, things like that work for?
So the compensation, so the landlord, again, depending on how it's written,
Yeah,
but generally speaking, whenever it's one of our listings, there's a commission tied to that listing when we get the job done.
yeah,
We generally take a portion of that commission and we offer it through MLS. The automatic default in the office is with an in-house deal, the commission is always split 50-50.
okay,
Doesn't matter what's in an office. If it's a 6% listing and it's 4% to the list office and 2% to, it's our listing, so it's 4% to us and 2% to somebody out there. If somebody in-house does it, it's automatically 3 and 3. It's always 50%.
Oh, that's interesting. So that,
between
were
the
to
two
bring up-
agents, right?
What's that?
Between the two agents, right?
Correct.
in that case that you just mentioned, if we were to bring a buyer's client and we were showing them a house that was listed by our company and they were offering out 2% on MLS, our buyer's commission would actually be fully covered if it was 3%.
Good question, but let's say that actually happens. Let's say that, and I'll paint you the picture. So for some ungodly known reason, Eric approves of a 4% listing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? In MLS, we offer 2%, which means that the listing agent within the office is going to keep 2%.
Mhm.
You're working with a buyer who's contracted for 3%.
Mhm.
What happens?
They're responsible for 1%.
Your client owes you the 1%, or? Well, owes you 2%, right? Because the,
So we're offering, so the split, in-house split is always going to be 50-50. So on that particular situation, there's 2% for the list agent and 2% for the buy agent. What happens with your buyer's contract that says they're obligated 3%? Julie, what do you think? It's a good question. Thanks for bringing it up.
So they're obligated for 3%. Are we the listing it? I'm just, sorry, I'm confused. Who's the listing, who's the buying? We're
the listing and the buying. We're the
Okay,
listing and the buying.
Yep. Okay, so
there's
we're
two
offering
factors
2%. So it's dual agency.
Potentially,
happening?
but not always. Not
Okay.
always the agency.
But in this situation, it would be, you would owe 1%. So if we're offering 2 and they're in contract for 3, they would owe 1%.
Okay.
Buyer.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, Lucy agrees with that? Okay, all right, yes?
I have no idea.
Take a guess. Make you make a stand. Yes or no?
I'm gonna be different and say no.
Okay. Madison?
I'm also gonna say no.
Okay.
I'll say no.
Okay, so let me ask the question, and let's see if that changes your answer. Does your buyer having to pay a 1% fee, does that put them at a disadvantage to every other buyer out there? Yes or no?
technically, no.
Technically, yes.
I mean, it depends on their financial situation, but.
No, so every other offer that they're gonna compete against, let's say we're in a multiple offer situation, and there are 2 offers, their offer, your buyer's offer, that owes 1%, is the same exact as an offer from outside the office. Who is your buyer at a disadvantage?
Yeah.
Why? You're right. Why? Because they have to pay the extra 1%. Right? So are we allowed, under our fiduciary, to put our buyers at a disadvantage?
No.
Never. So the answer is we would never charge it. They are not obligated to pay it. Period.
And it wouldn't come out of our pocket.
It would not come out of your pocket.
Okay.
I fully believe you, obviously. But
Thank you. I appreciate
my
it.
question, I just wanted to make sure before I said the next thing. If the other outside client agreed with their buyer's agent,
Who cares?
because then they'd be also.
I'm talking about the fact that we're either going to be in dual agency or working with we would have to, actually Julie was right, we'd have to be in dual agency because it's a contracted seller, contracted buyer, right? So your buyer can't be put at a disadvantage, right? Remember what we say about dual agency. We can't negotiate to the detriment of one over the other. We insist that they pay that fee, we're breaking our fiduciary, and they're gonna sue our asses off if they ever figure it out. That ain't gonna happen. So anytime we're in dual agency, there is no additional fee owed from the buyer, plain and simple. And we've never asked it. So how do you twist that into a salesy type? Hey, guess what? If you're contracted for 3%, you buy a property through our office, you don't have to pay the extra fee, regardless.
That's cool. And the agreed upon commission between the selling agent and the listing agent and the seller remains the same.
Remains the same. They're gonna pay it regardless.
Right.
Okay?
Got it.
The only other exception to the exclusive right to buy agreement, since that's what we're talking on, and I'll get you out of here, is veterans. If they're doing a VA loan, the VA loan will not let them pay a buyer agency. I am going to tell you straight up, I don't want you to ever charge a veteran a buyer agency up and above what's offered in MLS. Okay, I just think we owe them that. And
So
Lily will
is
tell
that
you.
why sometimes I've seen on the contracts that it'll be crossed off, they'll say as per MLS?
No, that's just somebody cheating and trying to do something without getting my approval.
Gotcha. So how would we alter this to have it?
Well, at the time that you're doing this, you're likely to know that the person's a veteran, he or she is a veteran.
Yeah,
And you would just, at that point, say per MLS because of their veteran status or doing a VA loan, that's automatic. It's a requirement of the VA loan process, period. So we, as a small, very minute way of saying thank you, I don't want veterans charged now. That's not to say that we're not going to go to a veteran and say, okay, if it's for sale by owner, they're not offering anything, you got to pay us a fee. Yeah, we're going to do that.
Okay.
Okay?
Sweet.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Hello?
See you later, Julie.
Bye, guys.
Uh,
Thank you.
I have